The Tampa Bay Buccaneers favored to win the NFC South for a fifth consecutive year. Baker Mayfield led one of the best offenses in the league last year and bringing pretty much everybody back. More questions about that defense, and that's where we're going to start our NFC South preseason players to watch. John Breech and Mike Renner each going to give us a player from all four teams that they're going to be watching this season. We begin with the Bucs. Breech starting us on that Tampa defense with a big name looking for a little bit of a restart to his career.
Absolutely, Chris. I'm going with Haason Reddick. This is a name that probably most people forgot about last season because he got in that contract dispute after being traded to the Jets. He ended up only playing in 10 games with New York, and he was a total non-factor. And so because of that 2024 season, I think a lot of people forget just how good of a pass rusher Haason Reddick is. From 2020 to 2023, that four-season period, he totaled 50.5 sacks. That was the fourth most in the NFL over that span. So he was one of the top pass rushers in the league during that period. He has that kind of lull with the Jets, and now here he is back playing for a very smart defensive coach in Todd Bowles, and he's going to be hungry to prove that last year was kind of a fluke. So I'm going to be watching him during the preseason. Now he's 30 years old, so I don't know how many preseason snaps he's going to get, but I feel like he is going to be playing with the chip on his shoulder to prove that he can still ball out. So I expect some big things from Haason Reddick.
I'm sticking along the defensive line, which I think is pretty loaded here in Tampa Bay, and one of the reasons I'm so high on them. But I'm going to go with year 3 defensive tackle, their former first-rounder, Kalijah Kancey, because his first 2 seasons in the NFL have really been marred by calf issues. He missed 5 games last year, missed multiple games his rookie year. But when he was on the field last year, this guy can rush the passer. His 39 pressures in 12 games, you extrapolate that out to a 17-game sample, it would have been the 6th best figure in the NFL. So this guy is already a top 10 pass rushing DT in the league, just has to stay healthy. And DT is a position where it takes a few years to get ready, get acclimated to the NFL physicality. He's there. He should be in a big breakout season. And if he does, this Bucs defense should be feared.
Let's move to the Atlanta Falcons, who are the second shortest favorite to win this behind the Bucs. They're around 2-1. On offense, they've got Michael Penix Jr., and he's got some weapons there. Defensively, Mike, they're really looking to change things up. Ulbrich has come in as the defensive coordinator on a defense that was second worst in sacks last season. Who are you looking for on that side of the ball?
I'm actually looking for one of their edge rushers that doesn't get talked about because they drafted 2 in the first round, but Arnold Ebiketie was a former second rounder, top of the second round actually. He was pick 38 back in 2022. So now he's heading into a contract year. And if you know anything about contract years, that's usually when you get the best out of a guy. So you got these 2 first rounders, obviously everyone knows about, but he's their most refined pass rusher. This guy has the best pass rushing moves, at least last year, of anyone on that roster. And so I'm expecting maybe you have those 2 guys who are big-time athletes in Jalen Walker, James Pierce. Maybe they're third down specialists, but Arnold Ebiketie could be your down-in, down-out, productive pass rusher there on the edge. If he takes a big step forward, there might be actual hope here in Atlanta to get a pass rush.
Yeah, and I'm also going to be talking about the pass rusher, which isn't surprising because, as you noted, Hassel, this team was one of the worst in the NFL at rushing the passer. Only 31 sacks last season, which was the worst in the NFC, second worst in the NFL behind only the Patriots. And that is why they ended up spending 2 first-round picks on pass rushers. We saw him take Jalen Walker with that first-round pick, and Walker's been kind of dealing with a hamstring injury, missed a few days, been slowed down. So I'm going to go with James Pierce Jr. The Falcons traded up, kind of surprised people in the draft by moving back in and getting Pierce in the first round. By all accounts, he's been having a fantastic training camp so far, and that's exactly what you want to hear because it's going to be tough for the Falcons to compete and win the NFC South, maybe be a playoff contender if your defense cannot rush the passer. So seeing Pierce in training camp is one thing. Can he maintain this momentum? Does this going to translate into success in the preseason games and then into the regular season? But so far, James Pierce has looked pretty ferocious, so I'm pretty excited to see what he can do in the preseason.
All defensive players so far as we go through our players to watch in the NFC South. We get to the Carolina Panthers. It'd be easy to pick Bryce Young. That's obvious. But how about somebody he's going to throw the ball to? You guys each have a wide receiver, and these guys really could not have taken different paths to get to this spot. Renner, lead us off with yours.
Now I'm going to go with the guy who took the less traveled path, Jalen Coker, a guy who was a UDFA coming out of Holy Cross, didn't run a fast 40, but all of a sudden, second half of last year, guy put up 478 yards over the back half of the season and kind of became, almost their de facto number one at times. So this is a guy that what I saw on tape was a already NFL caliber polished route runner that is physical. I mean, he is a big body, 6'2", over 200 pounds that can really, push corners around. And the thing I love about him, if you've seen the Panthers the past years, he doesn't drop passes. One drop last season. I think that reliability that he brings to the table can easily build rapport with Bryce Young. Obviously saw at the end of last year and now going forward.
Yeah, and Mike and I are absolutely on the same page here. I've got the first round pick, Tetaroa McMillan. When you look at the Panthers' offense last season, they couldn't throw the ball, whether it was Andy Dalton as the starter, whether it was Bryce Young. And Bryce Young did come along toward the end of the season, but this was an offense that relied a lot on Chuba Hubbard and that rushing attack. So they need to figure out how to implement more of a passing attack. So what do? You use your first-round pick on a guy like McMillan, who has been having a fantastic training camp. He's out there making highlight reel catches every other day, and that's exactly what the Panthers need because they really don't have that established number one superstar that you see with a team like the Cincinnati Bengals or the Minnesota Vikings. You need someone to come in and kind of just take over that receiving room. They're hoping McMillan can do that. So far, so good. And if he can maintain that and play like that in the regular season, maybe this team can take a step forward offensively that they weren't able to last year.
A top 10 pick from this year and an undrafted wide receiver from last season. Let's move on to our final team here, the New Orleans Saints. Haven't had any quarterbacks yet, but Breech is going to end that here.
Yeah, I mean, my guy to watch for the Saints is Tyler Shuck. I mean, when you look at what New Orleans is doing right now, you've got a quarterback battle. Jake Hayner's involved. Spencer Rattler's involved. So no one knows who the Saints quarterback is going to be in week one. So I think this is the most intriguing competition. I know that the Browns have their four-way QB battle. You have Anthony Richardson versus Daniel Jones in Indianapolis. But this is kind of the low-key wild card one because it's not clear who's going to win. I think the Saints would like Shuck to win because that's why you use a high draft pick on him, and he's played well so far in training camp. But what's going to happen when he sees the Chargers this week and an actual preseason game? That's a good question. This is where he's going to have a chance to separate himself from the rest of the pack, and I'll be very interested to see if he's able to do that.
Now I'm going to go from the quarterback to the guy he's going to be handing it off to. I think Kendre Miller is due for a breakout season. He, gets out from under the tyranny that was Dennis Allen, who you couldn't go through a training camp quote that about Kendre Miller from Dennis Allen that wasn't just derogatory. That wasn't just hating on him. He really did not get the benefit of the doubt in that, but he also was admittedly immature at times. He was a 20-year-old coming out, very young, a true junior. Now he just turned 23, going into year 3, reportedly in the best shape of his career. And yeah, we hear that every so often, but like with this guy, given how his career started, it's great news because he is freakishly talented. He was a third-round pick 72 back in 2023, going into year 3. And with the state of this franchise, why grind Alvin Kamara into dust at age 30? Why give him 300 carries? I think this is going to be a running back by committee. And if Kendre Miller breaks out, he could be your lead dog and have a transition plan going forward.
All right, players to watch in the NFC South. We'll be watching preseason all week this week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The Saints don't begin until Sunday at 4 Eastern against that Chargers team that played in the Hall of Fame game. Falcons are playing the other team that played in the Hall of Fame game, the Detroit Lions. They're on Friday, as are the Panthers against the Browns. The Bucs will play the Titans on Saturday.
Coming up, we're going to talk about the NFC South in the stage of elimination. Chris, you played this earlier. How was it as a game?
I love it. It's a great game.
It's going to be great.
You can make some money.
You can make some money. We're going to give you some good bets. HQ Spotlight here on a Monday. Odds to win the NFC South. Lest we remind you, it has been the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the past 4 years. However, they have not made it out of either the wild card or the divisional round since Tom Brady was there. They took them to the Super Bowl and they won the whole shebang. So where do the Bucs stand this year and the rest of the NFC South? For more on that, we're going to welcome in Emory Hunt and Mike McClure here. The stage of elimination. I feel like this could be a game show. Maybe it will be. Maybe Chris will host it someday. Mike, let's start with you and the Bucs. Where is your stage of elimination for them? And there's
man, I'm optimistic here. I like the Bucks. However, the price points here, wild card round loss at plus 260 is the one that I landed on. It was going to be that or the divisional round at plus 130. I feel extremely confident that this team finds a way to make the playoffs. I make him a very large favorite within the division. Ultimately, though, this is a team that I think is one that we're going to see week in and week out win a lot of games in the regular season and simply come up short in the postseason. That's where the matchups really get difficult for them. But when you talk about this schedule overall, I think there are a number of winnable games. I love where the bye is sandwiched here on this schedule as well. And just looking at that back half of the schedule from week 13 on, that is why I'm very confident this team is ultimately going to land in the playoffs. I just think that they fall short against the rest of the NFC and some of those other for sure playoff teams. I have them losing in the wild card round.
Yeah, I have them losing in the wild card round as well. When I look at the Bucks, I like how they are philosophically, right? They can get pressure. They have some pieces on offense where they run up the scoreboard. But I worry about them week to week in terms of shooting themselves in the foot. Baker Mayfield threw a lot of touchdown passes last year. He also led the league in interceptions. And that schedule, especially on the front half, you can't afford any mistakes of losing possession. So with that being a backdrop, I do like the Bucks to get to the postseason. But because of how strong and consistent other teams in the NFC are, I have them losing in the wild card.
Okay, so pretty much the same story for the Bucks as it has been for the past couple of seasons. Let's move on to the Falcons here. 8-9 record last season. Their win total is set at 7.5 right now. We had Michael Penix take over for Kirk Cousins week 16. They did try to be aggressive in the draft. However, when I was kind of looking over grades for the offseason, not a lot of hope for this Falcons team. Mike, where are you?
Yeah, I'm going to be on miss the playoffs here. And look, I think this team has upside to go win 10 games if everything works. I think that they're still throwing Michael Penix into the fire, so to speak, a little bit. When I look at this particular team, though, I really think it's one that's going to be either 8-9 or 9-8 for about a 3 to 4 year stretch here. And it really, to me, just simply comes down to the rest of the NFC. I think the NFC North and the NFC West are going to be divisions that have a lot of playoff potential there. So because I have the Falcons a pretty distant second place here behind the Bucks, that is the concern for me. You look at the schedule early. Yes, it's kind of nice to get the Bucks in week 1 when you know everyone is healthy, but everything else is difficult here. You see the Bills, 49ers in consecutive weeks, and just a schedule that I think has 8-9 or 9-8 kind of written all over it here. So I went and missed the playoffs.
I have them losing in the wild card round because I also have them winning the NFC South. I like the Falcons team getting better on defense, and that right there will help that offense put more points up on the board than they did last season.
Okay, that's pretty. What were the odds? Do we have that graphic for them? Did it have it in there for them to win the division? I don't know what those odds are. Lose the division plus 650. I don't know what it was.
They're around 2. Well,
yeah.
Plus 2.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting there. Emory, have not heard a lot of people being high on the Falcons, so we'll dive into that as the season goes along. Let's go to the Panthers. They managed to win 5 games last season. However, look, there is a lot more optimism. And I will say Dave Canales, he's being very realistic. He's like, I think we're going to give every team a good fight. We're not going to win every game. We've heard nice things between Bryce and Tet McMillan. But this team is young. They are unproven. Emory, both of you guys seem to be in the same spot here when it comes to the Panthers. Where is it?
Yeah, missing the playoffs. And for me, it's about that young team continuing to get better. They'll be much improved record-wise, but in an NFC conference where it's tightly contested across the 4 divisions, they're going to just miss out. So we'll see a team that wins 7 games or 8 games be much improved over last season, but not enough to really crack that playoff picture. So that's why I had them missing the playoffs, even though it was minus 300.
Yeah, it's missed the playoffs here for me. Look, I expect big strides forward, though. I think on an individual play basis, a week in and week out basis, a much better team than we saw a year ago, but they're still 2 years away from being a serious contender within their own division, in my opinion.
All right, let's move on to the Saints here. And I want to remind everybody of this quarterback room. It is Tyler Shough. It is Spencer Rattler. It is Jay Kaner. That is a quarterback room. New head coach in Kellen Moore. Emory, I feel like for the Saints, if I'm going to New Orleans, I'm focusing on what I'm eating and what I'm drinking, and that's about it. Emory.
Well, listen, if they start Spencer Rattler, this team gets a lot more interesting because he's been outplaying Tyler Shough in training camp. So because they still are considering this a battle, I have them missing the postseason, even though it's laying $1 billion points, $1 billion to break even. This is something that is going to have to carry on. This team is a lot better on paper than given credit for. Their defense is good, but until they figure out the quarterback situation, you can't trust them week to week moving forward.
Yeah, this team's missing the playoffs here. Look, guys, you talk about the quarterback situation. They're playing for a quarterback over the next 2 years at some point. That's what they're playing for. They're missing the playoffs here, and I actually think they could contend for the worst record in the NFL, around plus 500 if you're able to find it. No optimism at all for the New Orleans Saints this year.
Emery, I saw on Instagram somebody making collard green gumbo, like kind of combining the two. I don't know how I feel about it. I think if you want to be a little bit healthier, then maybe you could. Emory, Mike, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you real soon. Let's see, what are we talking about here? The NFL on CBS. It returns on September 7th. Check it out on CBS. You can also stream those games that we have on Paramount Plus.